percorso, diciamo, all'approfondimento dei temi verso questo ecosistema circolare che è così ben rappresentato da AFIL. Adesso ascolteremo dell'Unione Europea, adesso verifichiamo il collegamento e poi ascolteremo il punto di vista dell'industria assieme a Laura Rocchitelli, presidente dell'Elettrotecnica Rold, e ovviamente parleremo anche del ruolo per il futuro del manifatturiero con Tullio Antonio Maria Tolio. Proviamo a vedere appunto se è collegato con noi Marek Przeor. Hello? Can you hear us?
Sì, mi sentite?
E
sì,
anche un perfetto italiano.
Un po', sì, parlo un po' italiano, però mi permettete che inglese ci sarà la traduzione. Purtroppo non posso venire a Milano, ma vorrei dire qualche su cosa facciamo in clusters e cosa facciamo con tutte le sfide che abbiamo davanti noi in Europa. Allora mi permetto di parlare inglese adesso. Vediamo se
The stage is yours.
Sì,
Could you share your slide if you have a presentation?
So can you see the slides? Yeah.
No? Not yet? Okay. Right now we are ready.
Okay. So basically, let me recall the fact that we are in the EU single market, and I would like to draw your attention that it's 30 years of the single market right now.
Yes, we see the first slide, EU single market.
Lascio il tempo per tradurre, se è possibile. Okay,
no,
so
we don't need translation.
Va bene, okay. So in EU single market, we have people don't forget on don't recall that actually we are at the market of 440 million European citizens, and the whole EU is 15% of the global GDP. 23 million businesses employing 128 million people. I'm saying this to recall that actually Italy is part of this big single market, and you should look not only in Italian market, but actually broadly as the EU single market. And this is what we want to encourage all enterprises in Europe to consider this not as a national market, but as an EU market. And as you see, our main free rules of free movement of goods, free movement of services, free movement of capital, and free movement of persons has progressed, but most actually in free movement of goods. For free movement of services and free movement of capital, there is still work to be done. And free movement of persons, if you consider that it's only 3.4% of intra-EU employment, people, only 3.4% of people are working in different countries than they own. So this is the big EU single market with a still huge potential. And we as the European Union, we are giving all possible efforts in order to stimulate this process. Everyone can see the scoreboard with what is the state of transparency, but as well where your country is in terms of the late payments, in terms of public procurement, in terms of services of the public. If your companies have problems, you can go to your Europe advice and get tailor-made information services. You can complain as well as to solve problems in the so-called Solvit. If there is any problem with incorrect transposition of EU law by an administration from another country. And as well, lately, we launched the so-called single market MRG platform where we, together with the member states, are trying to remove still ongoing obstacles in the internal market. Why I'm saying this? Because in this all single market, we have clusters, and we have at our platform, European Cluster Collaboration Platform, we have around 1,500 cluster organizations. We know there are many more still in the EU. I think we could reach around 3,000 to have on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. And our effort is to animate and facilitate actions in order to do common projects and invest together. For this, we have basically 5 main services at the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. Clusters meet regions, and I would like to talk a bit about this, because right now, as you know, the operational programs from the European Regional Development Fund are already running and first calls are being launched. One of the main purposes of these meetings is to the cluster community in certain country, in certain region, to be in close the public administration, so that they present very well offer to the public administration in order to realize policy objective of these countries, regions, and vice versa. Here clearly what is expected from the public administration. So we have had for last 2 years 15 countries. We would be happy to go to Italy as well and help consolidate cluster community in Italy, so that cluster community in Italy at the international stage at EU level is represented, for example, Italian Cluster Alliance. At the same time, through C2 Labs projects, helping the potential project promoters case to bring the other clusters to come up with consortium and then apply for projects. Booster Academy dedicated just for cluster managers. We will have the next session in Torino, and we have as well matchmaking, organizing matchmaking for SMEs and cluster organizations outside EU. We had Taiwan, SouthMed. We will go to South Africa and Singapore still this year. So you are welcome to join these missions. And last but not least, I would like to invite you to all the meetings we have every 2 weeks at 8:30, so-called cluster talks, where we discuss most urgent or most pertinent issues in the cluster community related to EU. On Wednesday we will have Euroclusters. And Euroclusters, this partnerships of clusters across EU, which we launched with a hope to create pan-European meta clusters, pan-European group of clusters which can gather and attract others to solve particular issues in the specific industrial ecosystem or on specific issues. And AFIL is as well in one of the clusters, particularly working on sustainability and advanced manufacturing. And we believe this partnership will bring added value for our sustainability efforts in the EU. But we have as well Enterprise Europe Network in the EU, which is different kind, because it gathers public support, business support organizations, publicly funded across EU, but as well beyond. And they are actually should be a support for cluster organizations, for SMEs of the cluster organizations, particularly in terms of internationalization, in terms of support for innovation, but as well lately we will launch support for sustainable advisors and support for energy efficiency advisors. So Enterprise Europe Network from your region could be contacted and should support you basically in these efforts. And then something which started with issue when we realized in the EU that we don't have really battery industry, and we started to bring together any actors, businesses, big and small, and researchers to create alliances for solving and invest in specific topics. And these topics actually reflect the priorities, the business priorities, let's say, on EU. You can see batteries, you can see circular plastic, you can see raw materials, hydrogen, low carbon, emission aviation, solar PV and semiconductors. This is really as well, as you can see, leads to the gathering of investments, but as well encourages to have a special state aid treatment. So, having said so, this is the basis we have in order to lead to deal with these challenges, and on top of this, we have as a European Union Commission needed to react with some acts. So I will give you some examples, which give you the idea in which direction all is digital economy. We have the dominant positions of certain platforms. We see the potential abuse of the market position. So we came up with Digital Markets Act to make it fairer for participants, so to allow user companies to trade outside the platform, prohibit tracking of users outside the platform service for targeted advertising purposes. In short, to ensure that companies are treated fairly and the big platforms are not refraining from activities. Another example is Digital Service Act, with the purpose to eliminate any illegal content on illegal products, with a set of measures. And here as well, I should mention maybe the Artificial Intelligence Act, which position was issued lately by European Parliament. This will be, when it's adopted by the end of this year, this will be the first artificial intelligence regulation in the world. So these are very much digital challenges that we have. We have, of course, energy as a big challenge. As you see, Russia was the main supplier of gas, and this is what is happening now. The diversification is going on. Repower EU, which we launched to diversify gas supply and increase production of biomethane, hydrogen, increase the use of renewable energy and electrification, now is as well bringing results in many investments in this field. But there are other challenges, like when suddenly we had the lockdown and Taiwan appeared that was the biggest, is the biggest producer of chips. And then there was a big threat for even EU automotive companies to produce cars. So CHIPS Act, we issued CHIPS Act, and now we want to increase the chips by 20%, to have the share of 20% by 2030. Actually, big investments have been already announced in Germany, in Ireland, in Poland, going into billions of euro. So things are happening in this field as well, and then it's very much related to all our strategy dependence and critical raw materials that we are dependent on. Here there are examples of lead, graphite, silicon, where it's needed to have for production in order to use in car battery semiconductors. So we don't want to get from one dependence to another dependence. There is growing demand, so we have issued Critical Raw Material Act, and as you can see on this map, many we have quite an overview of what is. The main purpose is to either diversify the be innovative in order to replace and substitute the ones where we are very much dependent. For the other, I would like to stress here is the net zero green technologies, and here we are focusing on photovoltaic cells, wind power, biogas, biomethane, batteries, carbon capture, heat pumps. All of this is can give you the strategic thinking on where to invest and what time resources, as this will be the markets created and developed in these fields in the EU. So basically, what we assume, this whole technology for net zero emissions is about 600 billion per year. 30. So it's a huge business potential in this field. We of course are working on permitting, simplifying the standardization in this field as well, trying to accelerate the scaling up manufacturing through different funding. So concluding on this, we have EU independencies on energy, on semiconductors, critical raw materials, green technology. This is where we want to diversify supply, stimulate investment and recycling, and we cannot forget about skills agenda, as actually aging is very much an issue for the EU, and skills in business is something which is happening right now. But at the end, let me just recall these web pages, because the multi-annual financial framework is actually for companies, helping the regions and countries to fulfill these objectives. So here you watch carefully all EU funding opportunities from EU instruments, as well at regional level, from the European Regional Development Fund for Cohesion Policy, and as well EIB with Invest EU is having for loan guarantee microfinance providers. So you can find it very easily on our webpage, Access to Finance EU. So don't forget about our Euroclusters partnerships, which 75% of the funding should channel to SMEs. The calls are being launched. So all SMEs from the EU, and particularly from Lombardy, are as well invited to participate in these calls. Our feedback at this very moment is that there's a big demand, and what is most beneficial of this is that these calls are very much the calls for relevant SMEs, for relevant industrial ecosystems. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you good discussions this afternoon. Thank you.